The rain hammered my workshop roof like an angry landlord demanding rent. I stood there, socket wrench in hand, staring at the text message that had just turned my Tuesday evening into something resembling a bad country song. Running late again tonight. Dinner with the girls. Don't wait up. B. Bree Corlin, my wife of 15 years, had discovered the concept of dinner with the girls approximately 3 months ago. Before that, she'd spent most evenings complaining about her coworkers at Morrison Insurance, where she managed human resources with the enthusiasm of someone organizing a funeral. I'm Felix Roord, 41 years old, and I fix things for a living. I started as an engineer, got laid off during the tech downturn, and now I run a YouTube channel called Fix It Right from my garage workshop. Turns out people will watch a sarcastic middle-aged guy repair lawnmowers and explain why their dishwasher sounds like a distressed walrus. Who knew? My phone buzzed again. This time it was my daughter Ivy. Dad, Mom's car isn't at Applebee's. Just drove by with Madison. Thought you should know. 17 years old and already sharper than her old man. Ivy had inherited my cynicism but wrapped it in her mother's social awareness. Dangerous combination. I set down my tools and walked to the kitchen window. Our subdivision looked like every other middle-class neighborhood in the Pacific Northwest, identical houses with identical problems, hidden behind identical smiles. Mrs. Patel next door was watering her roses despite the rain, probably hoping to catch some neighborhood drama through her kitchen window. The house felt different when Bree wasn't home. Quieter, but not peaceful. More like the silence before something breaks. I grabbed a beer and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of mail Bree had left unopened. Credit card statements, mortgage payment notices, and something from her high school reunion committee. 20 years since graduation, and they were planning some elaborate weekend celebration. Nostalgia, Bree had said when the invitation arrived. Wouldn't it be fun to see everyone again? I'd nodded and made some joke about hoping her prom date had gone bald. She'd laughed, but something in her eyes had shifted, like she was already somewhere else. The front door opened at 11:30. Bree stumbled in, not drunk but flustered, her hair slightly messed and her lipstick gone. How was dinner? I asked from the couch, not looking up from my laptop. Oh, you know how it is with Linda and the gang. We lost track of time. Linda was Bree's only real friend from work, a divorced woman who treated marriage advice like a competitive sport. If Bree was actually with Linda, she'd have come home with stories and complaints. Instead, she headed straight for the shower. I opened my laptop and checked our joint credit card account. No charges at Applebee's tonight. No charges anywhere, actually, since her lunch yesterday at some place called Riverside Cafe downtown. The shower ran for 20 minutes. When Bree finally came to bed, she smelled like different soap and wore a nightgown I'd never seen before. Felix? She whispered in the dark. Yeah? Do you ever think about the past? Like, who you used to be before all this? I turned toward her, but she was facing the wall. Sometimes. Why? Just wondering if you're happy. If this is what you thought your life would look like. It was the kind of question that sounds caring, but feels like preparation for something else. Like when someone asks if you're sitting down before delivering bad news. I'm happy enough, I said. Are you? She didn't answer. 20 minutes later, she was snoring softly, and I was staring at the ceiling, wondering when my wife had become a stranger who happened to share my bed. The next morning, I found a business card in her jacket pocket while looking for the garage door remote. Darren Halloway, Premier Properties. The card was expensive, heavy stock with embossed lettering. On the back, someone had written, "Looking forward to catching up," in blue ink. I knew that name. Darren Halloway had been Bree's boyfriend senior year of high school. Star quarterback, prom king, the kind of guy who peaked at 18 and spent the rest of his life trying to recapture that glory. Last I'd heard, he'd gotten married, divorced, and was selling real estate somewhere in the city. My phone rang. It was Max Harper, my best friend since college and currently the best private investigator in the greater Portland area. Felix, you sound weird. What's wrong? Max had this talent for reading people through phone lines. Came in handy in her profession. Probably nothing. Bree's been acting strange lately. Strange how? I told her about the dinners, the text messages, the business card. Max listened without interrupting, which meant she was taking notes. Want me to look into it? She asked. I don't know. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Felix, in my experience, husbands who think they're being paranoid usually aren't paranoid enough. That afternoon, I uploaded a new video to my channel. How to fix a garbage disposal that's making weird noises. 30,000 subscribers watched me take apart a perfectly good appliance and explain why strange sounds usually meant something was broken inside. The irony wasn't lost on me. Max called me Thursday morning while I was editing footage of a leaf blower repair. Your wife's having lunch today at Riverside Cafe, downtown, corner of 3rd and Morrison, 12:30 reservation for 2. How do you know that? I called and asked if Bree Corlin had a reservation. They said yes, party of 2, same table she requested last week. Same table she requested last week. My wife had become a regular somewhere I'd never heard of. What do you want to do? Max asked. I want to see who she's having lunch with. Meet me at the coffee shop across the street, 11:45. I spent the morning trying to focus on work, but my hands kept shaking. 15 years of marriage, and I was about to spy on my wife like some jealous teenager. Part of me hoped I was wrong. Part of me hoped I was right, just so I'd know for sure. Max was already at the coffee shop when I arrived, sitting by the window with a clear view of Riverside Cafe. She looked like every other downtown professional. Dark suit, laptop open, phone pressed to her ear. Nobody would suspect she was conducting surveillance. There, she said, pointing across the street. Bree walked into the cafe at 12:25, wearing a dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. She looked nervous, checking her reflection in the window before going inside. 5 minutes later, a silver BMW pulled up to the curb. The driver was tall, athletic, with the kind of artificial tan that screamed real estate agent. Even from across the street, I could tell he spent serious money on his appearance. Darren Halloway, I said. You know him? High school boyfriend. Apparently they've been catching up. Max raised her camera and started taking pictures. How long has this been going on? 3 months, maybe longer. We watched them through the cafe window. Bree was animated, laughing at something Darren said. He reached across the table and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. I've seen enough, I said. Felix, wait. We need more than one lunch. Could be innocent. Look at her, Max. When's the last time she looked that happy talking to me? But Max was right. One lunch proved nothing. We needed a pattern, evidence, something concrete. Over the next 2 weeks, I became an expert at surveillance. Max taught me how to follow someone without being noticed, how to take pictures from a distance, how to document everything. The pattern emerged quickly. Tuesdays and Fridays, Bree would leave work early for errands that always included lunch at Riverside Cafe. Sometimes they'd walk to his BMW afterward. Once I watched them drive to a parking garage downtown and stay there for an hour. I started checking our credit card statements more carefully. No hotel charges, but plenty of small purchases that didn't make sense. Coffee shops I'd never heard of, a lingerie store at the mall, gas stations across town from where she worked. The worst part was how good she'd gotten at lying. Bree would come home with elaborate stories about her day, complete with details about conversations with coworkers I could easily verify. She'd learned to mix truth with fiction, making it impossible to catch her in an obvious lie. She's covering her tracks, Max explained. This isn't some impulsive affair. She's planning this. We were sitting in my workshop, reviewing photographs, picture after picture of my wife with another man, looking happier than she'd been in years. What's your next move? Max asked. I don't know. Confront her? With what? She'll deny everything, promise to stop, and then get better at hiding it. So what do you suggest? Max leaned back in her chair. You could hire a lawyer, start divorce proceedings, and give her half of everything, including my business. Or, Max said slowly, you could get creative. That night, Bree came home with another story about working late on a personnel issue. She'd even brought home Chinese food from a restaurant near her office, as if dinner proved her innocence. How was your day? She asked, settling onto the couch beside me. Productive. Fixed Mrs. Patterson's washing machine, edited 3 videos, did some research on old friends. Old friends? You know how it is. Social media makes it easy to look up people from the past. Bree's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Anyone interesting? Remember Raina Favren? We dated junior year of college. Vaguely. She's divorced now, living in Seattle. We've been messaging back and forth. It was a complete lie. I hadn't spoken to Raina in 20 years and had no idea if she was even still alive. But Bree's reaction was immediate and telling. Messaging about what? Just catching up. Nostalgia, you know? She was asking if I was happy, if marriage was what I'd expected. Bree set down her fork. That seems inappropriate. Does it? I thought nostalgia was harmless. That's different. How? It just is. I nodded and went back to my dinner. You're probably right. I should probably stop talking to her. Yes, you should. Of course, if I'm being honest, it's been nice talking to someone who remembers who I used to be, before all this. Bree stared at me. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just that sometimes it's nice to feel young again. She didn't say another word for the rest of dinner. The next Tuesday, I followed Bree to her lunch date myself. Max had taught me well. Stay 3 cars back, use different routes, park where you can see the exits. I watched them through the cafe window, and this time I saw something that made my chest tight with rage. Darren had brought a small wrapped box. Bree opened it and pulled out a silver bracelet. She let him put it on her wrist, then leaned across the table and kissed him. Not a friendly peck. A real kiss. The kind that said they'd done this before and planned to do it again. I sat in my truck, hands gripping the steering wheel, and made a decision. If Bree wanted to play games, I'd show her how games were really played. That evening, I uploaded a new video to my YouTube channel. How to deal with things that look good on the surface but are rotten underneath. I spent 20 minutes explaining how to identify structural damage in wooden beams, how rot could spread if you didn't address it quickly, and how sometimes the only solution was complete replacement. The thing about rot, I told my 32,000 subscribers, is that it's usually worse than it looks. What seems like a small problem on the surface often goes much deeper, and once you know it's there, you can't just ignore it and hope it goes away. The video got twice as many views as usual. People seemed to connect with the metaphor, even if they didn't know the whole story. Friday morning, I was in my workshop when Ivy knocked on the door. "Dad, we need to talk." She came in and sat on my workbench, looking older than 17. "I know about Mom." "What do you mean?" "I'm not stupid. The lunches, the new clothes, the way she acts when her phone buzzes. Plus, Madison's mom saw her with some guy at the mall last weekend." I set down my screwdriver. "What do you want me to do about it?" "I want you to stop pretending everything's normal." "It's complicated, Ivy." "No, it's not. She's cheating, and you're letting her get away with it." "I'm not letting her get away with anything," Ivy studied my face. "You're planning something." "I'm planning to handle this my way." "Good, because I'm tired of watching her treat you like garbage." That afternoon, I drove to Darren's real estate office. Premier Properties occupied the ground floor of a glass building downtown, all chrome and marble designed to impress potential clients. I walked in wearing my best jeans and a clean shirt, playing the role of a potential customer. "Can I help you?" asked the receptionist. "I'd like to speak with Darren Halloway about listing my house." "Of course. Let me see if he's available." Darren appeared a few minutes later, all white teeth and firm handshakes. Up close, he looked exactly like what he was. A middle-aged man desperately trying to look 30. "Mr. Roard, is it? What can I do for you?" "I'm thinking about selling my house. Friend of mine recommended you." "Excellent. What's the address?" I gave him my real address, watching his face for any recognition. If he knew where Bree lived, he hid it well. "Great neighborhood," he said. "Very desirable. Why are you looking to sell?" "Divorce," I said simply. Something flickered in his eyes. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be. Sometimes these things work out for the best." We talked for 20 minutes about market conditions and pricing strategies. Darren was smooth, professional, and completely unaware that he was talking to the husband of his girlfriend. As I left, I palmed one of his business cards from the reception desk. On the back, I wrote, "Looking forward to our next conversation," in blue ink. That night, I slipped the card into Bree's purse. Saturday morning, she found it. "Felix, what is this?" She stood in the kitchen doorway, holding the business card like evidence in a trial. "What's what?" "This card, in my purse." I looked at it and shrugged. "Real estate agent, looks like." "Why?" "Someone wrote on it." "Weird. Maybe it fell out of something else?" Bree stared at me, trying to figure out if I was lying. I've never seen this before. Maybe someone at work dropped it in there by mistake? Maybe. But she didn't look convinced. For the rest of the weekend, she kept checking her purse, her phone, her car. I'd planted a seed of paranoia, and it was already growing. Monday evening, I was in my workshop when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Roard, this is Darren Halloway from Premier Properties. I wanted to follow up on our conversation Friday." "Oh, right. Thanks for calling." "I've been thinking about your situation, and I wanted to make sure you're working with the right agent. Divorce sales can be tricky." "I appreciate that. The thing is, I specialize in helping people through difficult transitions. I understand how complicated these situations can be." There was something in his voice, a smugness, that made my jaw clench. "I'm sure you do," I said. "Why don't we meet for coffee this week? I can explain my process in more detail." "Actually, Darren, I think I've learned everything I need to know about your process." Silence on the other end. "I'm sorry." I said I've learned everything I need to know. About you, about your methods, about how you handle other people's relationships. More silence. Mr. Roard, I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating it directly. Stay away from my wife. The line went quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. I think there's been some misunderstanding, he finally said. No misunderstanding. I know about the lunches, the bracelet, all of it. This is your one warning. Mr. Roard, I think you should be careful about making accusations. And I think you should be careful about underestimating people. I hung up and immediately called Max. It's time, I said. Time for what? Time to show them what happens when you mess with the wrong guy. Darren's next open house was scheduled for Sunday afternoon in the West Hills, one of those sprawling modern houses that looked like it belonged in a magazine. According to his website, he was expecting a big crowd. The house was priced at $1.2 million and had been featured in the local real estate section. Perfect. Max and I spent the week preparing. She used her connections to get the security codes for the parking garage where Darren kept his BMW. I used my YouTube workshop to prepare some special surprises. You sure about this? Max asked as we reviewed the plan. I'm sure about everything except how much trouble we'll get in. Legally, we're fine as long as we don't damage anything permanently. And ethically? Felix, your wife is screwing another man, and they're both lying to everyone about it. Ethics went out the window 3 months ago. Saturday night, I couldn't sleep. Bree was beside me, snoring softly, completely unaware that tomorrow would change everything. Part of me felt bad about what I was planning. Part of me felt like I should wake her up and give her one last chance to come clean. But then I remembered the kiss at the cafe, the bracelet, the months of lies. She'd made her choice. Now I was making mine. Sunday morning, Bree announced she was going shopping with Linda. What kind of shopping? I asked. Just browsing, maybe lunch afterward. Where? We haven't decided yet. Another lie. I'd already confirmed that Linda was visiting her sister in Eugene this weekend. After Bree left, I loaded my supplies into the truck and drove to meet Max at the parking garage downtown. She'd already located Darren's BMW and disabled the security cameras on that level. You ready for this? She asked. I've been ready for months. The first part of the plan was simple. I opened Darren's trunk and placed a small Bluetooth speaker inside, connected to my phone. Then I scattered some items around the trunk, things that would be embarrassing if discovered publicly. The second part required more finesse. I attached a small device to his car's electrical system, something I'd designed specifically for this purpose. It wouldn't damage anything, but it would create quite a show when activated. How long do we have? I asked. His open house starts at 2. He'll probably be here around 1:30 to pick up signs and materials. We were back in position across the street by 1:15. At 1:28, Darren appeared, looking confident in his expensive suit. He loaded his trunk with real estate signs and headed for the West Hills. We followed at a distance. The open house was already busy when we arrived. Cars lined both sides of the street, and well-dressed couples wandered through the front yard, admiring the landscaping. I parked where I had a clear view of Darren's BMW and waited. At 2:45, Bree's car pulled up behind Darren's. She got out wearing a sundress I'd never seen before and walked directly into the house like she'd been there before. There's our confirmation, Max said, taking pictures. Now we wait for the crowd to build. By 3:15, there were at least 50 people at the open house. Local news had even sent a reporter to cover the sale. Apparently the house had some architectural significance. Perfect timing. I pulled out my phone and activated the first device. Darren's BMW erupted in sound. The horn blared continuously while the Bluetooth speaker in his trunk played a recording I'd made the night before. Bree's voice saying, "You make me feel alive again," over and over at maximum volume. Every head in the crowd turned toward the car. Darren came running out of the house, his face red with embarrassment and confusion. He fumbled with his keys, trying to shut off the alarm, but my device had overridden his electrical system. The horn kept blaring, the recording kept playing, and the crowd kept staring. Then the trunk popped open. I'd timed it perfectly. As Darren bent over the engine, trying to disconnect the battery, the trunk opened to reveal my planted evidence: romance novels, massage oils, and a hotel keycard from a place called the Velvet Key. The crowd pressed closer, phones out, recording everything. The news reporter was practically salivating. But I wasn't finished. I activated the second device, and Darren's car began flashing its lights in a pattern I'd programmed. SOS in Morse code, over and over. "What the hell is happening?" someone in the crowd shouted. Darren was frantically trying to close the trunk, but my device had disabled the latch. Every time he slammed it shut, it popped back open, displaying the contents for everyone to see. That's when Bree appeared. She pushed through the crowd, clearly panicked, and grabbed Darren's arm. "What's going on?" "I don't know. The car just went crazy." And that's when I played my trump card. I activated the final recording through the Bluetooth speaker, a conversation I'd recorded during one of their lunch dates using a device Max had given me. Bree's voice filled the air. "I can't keep lying to Felix. This is getting too complicated." Darren's response. "Just a little longer. Once you file for divorce, we can be together openly." Bree again. "What if he finds out before then?" Darren. "He won't. He's too busy playing with his little YouTube channel to notice what's really happening." The crowd went silent. Every phone was recording. The news reporter was scribbling notes frantically. Bree's face went white. She looked around at all the staring faces, then back at Darren, who was still trying to shut off his car. "Felix," she whispered, scanning the crowd. I stepped out from behind a parked car, walked calmly through the crowd, and stopped directly in front of them. "Hello, honey," I said. "How's your shopping trip with Linda going?" The crowd pressed closer, sensing drama. "Felix, I can explain." "No need," I said. "I think your explanation just played for everyone to hear." Darren finally managed to disconnect his battery, and the horn stopped blaring. But the damage was done. 50 people, including a news reporter, had witnessed the whole thing. "You," Darren said, pointing at me. "You did this." "Did what? I'm just here looking at houses." "You sabotaged my car." "That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" He lunged toward me, but I was ready. I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him into the fountain in the front yard. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Darren climbed out of the fountain, soaking wet and furious. "You're going to pay for this." "Am I? For what, exactly? Your car malfunctioned and you fell into a fountain. I didn't touch you." The news reporter pushed forward with her microphone. "Sir, can you comment on the recordings we just heard?" Bree grabbed my arm. "Felix, please. Can we talk about this privately?" "Why? You've been conducting your relationship publicly for months. I thought you might enjoy the attention." "This isn't fair." "Fair?" I looked around at the crowd, all of them recording with their phones. "You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about fair." I raised my voice so everyone could hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet my wife, Bree, and her boyfriend, Darren. They've been having lunch dates for 3 months while telling me she was working late or shopping with friends. Today was supposed to be another shopping trip, but as you can see, she ended up here instead." The crowd murmured and shifted, some looking uncomfortable, others clearly entertained. "Felix, stop," Bree pleaded. "Why should I stop? You didn't stop when you were lying to me. Darren didn't stop when he was making plans to steal my wife." Darren stepped forward, water still dripping from his suit. "That's enough." "Is it? Because I'm just getting started." I pulled out my phone and showed the screen to the crowd. "I've been documenting this affair for 2 weeks. Photos, recordings, credit card receipts. Would you like me to share those too?" "You can't do this," Bree said. "Actually, I can. It's all public record now. Your boyfriend here made sure of that when he decided to humiliate me in my own home." The news reporter was loving every second. "Sir, what do you plan to do now?" "Now? Now I'm going home to change the locks and pack my wife's belongings. She can pick them up from the front yard anytime after 6. I turned to walk away, then stopped and looked back at Darren. "Oh, and Darren, you might want to check with your insurance company about water damage to your car. I have a feeling you're going to need it." The video went viral by Monday morning. Someone in the crowd had posted the whole confrontation on social media, and it spread faster than I could track. "Cheating wife exposed at open house" had 500,000 views before breakfast. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. News outlets, talk shows, podcasts. Everyone wanted to interview the guy who'd publicly humiliated his cheating wife and her boyfriend. I ignored them all and focused on what needed to be done. Bree had come home Sunday night to find her belongings neatly packed and stacked on the front porch. The locks were changed, and I'd left a note explaining that she could collect everything at her convenience. She'd pounded on the door for an hour, alternating between apologies and threats, but I'd stayed in my workshop with the music turned up loud. Monday morning brought a knock from a process server. Bree was filing for divorce and claiming I'd intentionally humiliated her in public. "Good luck with that," I told the server. "The whole thing's on video." Max called around noon. "Felix, we need to talk." "What's wrong?" "Darren's making noise about pressing charges, vandalism, harassment, that kind of thing." "Let him try. I never touched his car." "Can you prove that?" "Can he prove I did?" Max was quiet for a moment. "There's something else. How Bree's been calling my office, trying to hire me to investigate you." "What did you tell her?" "That I had a conflict of interest. But Felix, she's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. That afternoon, I got a call from Ivy's school. She'd been in a fight with another student who'd made comments about the viral video. I picked her up from the principal's office, and we drove home in silence. "I'm sorry," I finally said. "For what?" "For making this public, for embarrassing you at school." Ivy looked at me like I was an idiot. "Dad, I'm not embarrassed. I'm proud of you." "Proud? You stood up for yourself. You didn't just take it like some pathetic victim. But now everyone knows our business. Everyone knew anyway. At least now they know the truth." That evening, I was editing a new video when my workshop door opened. Darren walked in, and he wasn't alone. 2 large men in expensive suits flanked him. "Mr. Rord," Darren said, "we need to have a conversation." "Do we? Because I thought we covered everything at your open house." "You humiliated me in front of half the city." "You humiliated yourself. I just provided the stage." One of his companions stepped forward. "Mr. Halloway thinks you owe him an apology." "Does he?" "Well, Mr. Halloway can think whatever he wants. Doesn't make it true." "Maybe we can help you see things differently," the man said. I looked around my workshop, the cameras, the tools, the equipment I'd been using for years. Then I looked back at the 3 men who'd just made a very serious mistake. "Gentlemen," I said, reaching for a remote control on my workbench, "welcome to my YouTube channel." I pressed a button, and every camera in the workshop activated. Red recording lights blinked to life, and my computer began streaming live to my 40,000 subscribers. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said to the cameras, "I'd like you to meet Darren Halloway and his friends. They've just entered my private workshop without permission to have what Darren calls a conversation." Darren's face went white. "Turn those off." "Why? I thought you liked public attention." The chat window on my computer was exploding with comments. Viewers were asking questions, making jokes, and most importantly, recording everything. "You see," I continued, addressing the cameras, "Mr. Halloway seems to think that sleeping with other people's wives gives him the right to make demands." "Turn off the cameras or we'll turn them off for you," one of the men said. "That sounds like a threat." Did everyone hear that? Because threatening someone on a live stream is a crime in Oregon. My viewer count was climbing rapidly. Word was spreading that the guy from the viral video was live streaming another confrontation. "You're insane," Darren said. "Am I? Or am I just smarter than you thought?" I walked to my workbench and picked up a cordless drill. "You know what this is, Darren?" "A drill." "That's right. And you know what I use it for?" "Drilling holes." "Exactly, but it has other uses too." I turned on the drill, and it whirred to life. The sound echoed through the workshop, amplified by the concrete walls. "For example," I said, walking slowly toward them, "it makes an excellent deterrent for unwanted visitors." The 2 men looked at each other uncertainly. "He's bluffing," Darren said, but his voice cracked. "Am I? Why don't you test that theory?" I moved closer, the drill still whirring. "You're crazy," one of the men said. "Maybe. But I'm crazy with 43,000 witnesses and a live video feed. How crazy are you?" They backed toward the door. "This isn't over," Darren said. "Yes, it is. Because if you come near me, my family, or my property again, I'll make your open house humiliation look like a warm-up act." After they left, I turned back to the cameras. "Well, folks, that was exciting. Tune in next week when I'll be showing you how to install a security system that actually works." I ended the stream and sat down at my workbench. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. My phone buzzed with a text from Max. Watching the stream, that was either brilliant or insane. I texted back, "Why not both?" 20 minutes later, the police arrived. Someone had called in a report of a disturbance. I showed them the video, explained the situation, and gave them a copy of everything I'd recorded. The officers were professional, but clearly amused. "Mr. Rord," one of them said, "we can't tell you how to run your life, but maybe consider installing some better locks." "Already on my list," I said. After they left, I sat in my workshop and looked around at the chaos of my life. My marriage was over, my wife was probably planning legal revenge, and I'd just threatened 3 men with a power drill on live television. But for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Wednesday night, the power went out. I was in my workshop, editing footage from the confrontation with Darren when everything went dark. The backup generator should have kicked in automatically, but nothing happened. I grabbed a flashlight and went outside to check the electrical panel. Someone had cut the main line. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Workshop, now. Come alone." I called Max, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried 911, but my cell service was jammed. Professional work. I went back inside and grabbed my emergency kit. flashlight, radio, and the Louisville Slugger I kept behind my workbench. If someone wanted a confrontation, I'd give them one. The workshop was dark, except for the red glow of my emergency exit sign. I could hear movement outside, footsteps on gravel, whispered conversations. Felix roared. A voice called from outside. "We need to talk." "Then call and make an appointment," I shouted back. "Open the door, or we'll open it for you." I moved to my computer and activated the backup power system I'd installed after Sunday's visit. Emergency lighting flickered on, and my cameras came back online. But instead of starting a live stream, I activated my workshop's special features. See, most people didn't know that I'd spent 3 years as a mechanical engineer before YouTube made me famous. And engineers, especially paranoid engineers, like to build things with multiple redundancies. My workshop wasn't just a workspace, it was a fortress. "Last chance," the voice outside called. "Come on in," I replied. "Doors open." It wasn't, of course, but I wanted them to try. The first man through the door stepped straight onto my welcome mat, a pressure plate that triggered an air horn loud enough to shake the walls. He staggered backward, hands over his ears, straight into the path of my second surprise. A bucket of industrial-strength adhesive, rigged to fall when the air horn sounded. He was stuck to the floor in seconds, covered in glue that would take hours to remove. "Jesus Christ!" he shouted. "Nope," I called from behind my workbench. "Just Felix, but I appreciate the comparison." 2 more men entered, more cautiously this time. They'd learned from their friend's mistake and were watching for traps. Smart, but not smart enough. I activated the fog machine I'd installed for dramatic effect in my videos. Thick, white smoke filled the workshop, reducing visibility to almost zero. "What the hell?" one of them shouted. "Welcome to my world," I replied, moving quietly through the smoke. I knew every inch of this space. They didn't. The strobe lights came next. High-intensity LED arrays that turned the workshop into a disorienting maze of shadows and light. Combined with the fog, it was like being inside a nightmare. "Where are you?" someone called. "Right here," I said, appearing behind one of them and tapping him on the shoulder. He spun around swinging, but I was already gone, vanished back into the smoke and lights. "This is insane," the man shouted. "You ain't seen nothing yet," I replied. I activated the final system. Speakers positioned throughout the workshop began playing a recording I'd made specifically for this moment. My voice, amplified and distorted, filled the space. "You came to my home. You threatened my family. You thought you could intimidate me because I'm just some guy with a YouTube channel." The strobe lights intensified, and the fog machine pumped out more smoke. "But you forgot something important," my recorded voice continued. "I fix things for a living, and right now, you're broken." One of the men stumbled into my paint station and triggered another trap, a shower of fluorescent orange paint that marked him like a target. "I can't see anything," he shouted. "That's the point," I replied. My phone, connected to the workshop's PA system, began playing the sound of power tools, drills, saws, grinders, all at maximum volume. The psychological effect was exactly what I'd hoped for. 3 grown men, trapped in a maze of smoke and light and sound, began to panic. "Let us out," one of them screamed. "Door's right where you left it," I called back. "Just follow the screaming." That's when Darren's voice cut through the chaos. "Enough!" The smoke began to clear, and I could see him standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the streetlight outside. "Turn off the circus, Felix. Let's finish this." I shut down the effects and turned on the normal workshop lights. 3 men stood in various states of distress. One glued to the floor, one covered in orange paint, and one looking like he'd seen a ghost. "Gentlemen," I said, "you're trespassing on private property. I suggest you leave before I call the police." "We're not going anywhere," Darren said. "Then you're stupider than I thought." I walked to my computer and hit a button. Every camera in the workshop activated, and the red recording lights began blinking. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said to the cameras, "welcome back to Fix It Right. Tonight's episode is called How to Deal with Persistent Pest Problems." Darren's confidence wavered. "Turn those off." "Why? Afraid your wife might be watching?" "I'm not married anymore." "Really? When did that happen?" "Sunday, right after your little performance." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "That's too bad, Darren. But I guess that's what happens when you build your life on lies. You destroyed everything." "I didn't destroy anything. I just turned on the lights." He pulled out a gun. The workshop went silent, except for the hum of the cameras and the distant sound of traffic. "Now we're getting somewhere," I said calmly. "You think this is funny?" I think you're making a very serious mistake on live television. Darren looked around at the cameras, seeming to notice them for the first time. How many people are watching? He asked. I checked my computer screen. 67,000 and climbing. Turn them off. Can't do that, Darren. This is prime content. I'll destroy you. With what? A gun? On camera? In front of 70,000 witnesses? His hand was shaking now. You ruined my life, he said. No, you ruined your life. I just documented it. I lost everything because of you. You lost everything because you're a liar and a cheat who got caught. Shut up. The truth hurts, doesn't it? That's when the sirens started. Someone in my live audience had called 911, and the cavalry was coming. Sounds like the police, I said. You might want to put that gun away before they get here. Darren looked around wildly, realizing he was trapped. This is your fault, he said. No, this is your choice. Just like sleeping with my wife was your choice. The sirens were getting closer. You can still walk away, I said. Put the gun down, walk out that door, and disappear. Start over somewhere else. It's too late for that. It's never too late to stop making things worse. The sirens stopped outside my workshop. Darren, I said quietly, you've got about 30 seconds before this becomes a hostage situation. Is that really how you want this to end? He looked at the gun in his hand, then at the cameras, then at me. I hate you, he said. I know. But hate's not worth spending the rest of your life in prison. The workshop door opened and police officers poured in. Drop the weapon, they shouted. Darren looked at me one last time, then set the gun on my workbench and raised his hands. As they cuffed him, he said, This isn't over. Yes, it is, I replied. After the police left with Darren and his friends, I turned back to the cameras. Well, folks, that's a wrap on tonight's special episode. Tune in next week when I'll be showing you how to install a proper security system. I ended the stream and sat down at my workbench, exhausted. My phone rang. It was Max. Felix, are you okay? I just watched the whole thing. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. The video's already got 2 million views. Good. Maybe it'll keep other idiots from trying the same thing. What about Bree? I looked around my workshop, my sanctuary, my fortress, my kingdom of tools and creativity. What about her? Are you going to try to work things out? Max, some things can't be fixed, and some things aren't worth fixing. I hung up and turned off the lights. Outside, the neon sign for my workshop flickered in the rain, a hammer striking an anvil over and over, sparks flying into the darkness. Tomorrow, I'd start building something new. Tonight, I was done fixing broken things. The rain hammered the roof like applause, and for the first time in months, I smiled.